Mock Draft Monday. Pro Football Network has dropped a new mock draft, and we have Luther Burden to the Carolina Panthers with the first overall pick. We're going to discuss this and all other 31 picks coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day. And you know I got to kick this intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, and what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we're your number one source for everything NFL draft content. DP, today is Monday. I'm talking mock draft money. Yes, Monday. We're getting this 2025 NFL draft cycle started, man, with the mock draft Mondays from PFN's incomings. We're going to go through that. We have the Carolina Panthers with the number one overall pick, a very interesting situation. And then we have a LSU offensive tackle duo. Yes, we know one, but we're about to introduce you to the other guy on that's playing right tackle. And then Shedeur Sanders to Dallas, prime time son, back in Dallas. We're going to have this conversation, man. I want to say shout out to everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. But DP, before we get this thing started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, guys, with the first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers select Luther Burden III, wide receiver out of Missouri. With the second pick in the 2025 Pro Football Network's mock draft, the Tennessee Titans select Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. With the third pick, the New York Giants select Carson Beck, quarterback out of Georgia. With the fourth pick, the Washington Commanders select Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. With the fifth pick, the New England Patriots selects James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. With the sixth pick, the Denver Broncos select Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan. With the seventh pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State. With the eighth pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select Donovan Smith, quarterback out of Houston. With the ninth pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Travis Hunter, cornerback out of Colorado. And with the 10th pick, the Indianapolis Colts select Fernando Carmona Jr., offensive tackle out of Arkansas. Keith, the first and second overall picks in incoming mock were wide receivers.
Yep. This is my initial take. I think it's definitely a need, right? Like the Carolina Panthers use whoever is going to be wide receiver one in this draft class, they definitely can use him. Now, the question is this. When we compare it to drafts of the past, right, and we did a segment where we went through the best wide receivers, right, to enter the NFL draft, and I don't think any of those guys went number one overall, right? So I just don't see it. And honestly, Carolina Panthers, if you're back sitting at number one, potentially if Bryce Young is playing decent football, right, it's still just a bad situation, then you can trade out of that pick. You can do the Chicago Bears, right? You get to kind of, now you have the leverage. The Chicago Bears potentially trade down to pick number 5, right? And then potentially draft a wide receiver, or be able to trade for somebody or something like that. I think that puts you in a better situation. You almost get to do the reverse thing, right? Because the Carolina Panthers sent DJ Moore and some first round picks to move up to number 1. Now potentially somebody gets to send them a top-notch wide receiver and some draft picks, right? And then they get to move down. So
100%. And Keith, I'm gonna tell you, I don't like the pick right here with them going wide receiver because they still need edge. They still have another option at corner. And like you said, if Bryce is playing solid football, and as I see in his blurb, when I read it, he said Deontay Johnson is going to be a free agent in 2025. I highly doubt that they traded for him without having in mind that, hey, we going to have to cut a check to Deontay Johnson, right? If he comes out and he's their wide receiver one and, Xavier Legette comes out there and plays well, you get some improvement from a Jonathan Mingo. Like you said, trade down. But then, Keith, I go down. Like, these first two picks are just baffling to me. The Tennessee Titans go wide receiver again. So you signed DeAndre Hopkins last offseason, right? What's that, 2023 offseason? Fast forward to 2024 offseason. You signed Calvin Ridley to a 3-year, $75 million guaranteed deal and all of that. You still have Kyle Phillips. You still have Treylon Burks. You brought in Tyler Boyd, but you drafted J.C. Latham. And I don't know what's the situation. I heard, talking to our guy over at Locked On Saints, Ross Jackson. He said that Talise Fuaga is taking snaps at left tackle for the New Orleans Saints in OTAs. Didn't see that I didn't have that on my bingo card, Keith, that Talise Fuaga, who was viewed as a right tackle only or a guard, is going to flip to the left. I don't know if that's going to happen with J.C. Latham, but if the two LSU tackles are there, like, you're in the prime spot to, like you said, like, same thing with Carolina. If a team needs a Jalen Milroe, Shador Sanders, or whoever they feel is QB2, you could trade down if you Tennessee. I'm not taking a freaking wide receiver at 2 when your offensive line is still bad.
Yep. No, 100%. And I think also, DP, when you look at it, and maybe it's not sexy, right, to go offensive line 3 years in a row of you Titans, but you got to do what you got to do, right? The offensive line was that bad, so you have to address it. DP, I'll talk about pick 3. I like pick 3. The New York Giants going to get Carson back. I believe at this point, at this juncture, haven't done the entire deep dive on Carson Beck, right? But watched him through having to watch Ladd McConkey and some of those other guys. I believe that he's a lot more talented than what people are giving him credit for. And he kind of has the Georgia quarterback misnomer, right? The Jake Fromm, what's our guy? DP?
Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, Stetson Bennett situation. But I think this guy is talented. I think he's extremely talented, and we'll see how that goes. So I definitely like that pick for them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the 2024 NFL draft signaled to everyone that we're going to give Daniel Jones 2024. But, brother, if you don't return to Danny Dimes in some way, shape, or form, you are getting replaced by a rookie in 2025.
DP, all I have to say is if I'm Brian Daboll, right, I'm having a meeting. I'm calling this meeting with the owners, and I'm saying, listen, y'all didn't give me no quarterback. I have Daniel Jones. I deserve to be able to coach in 2025, right? Like, you cannot put this on me. We have seen it happen. We've seen the best I can do. So, yeah, I'm calling the team president. I'm calling the GM, calling the owner. We having this meeting right now to get this situated. But I do potentially like, Carson Beck with New York Giants and him being able to have a guy that he can mold into.
Accuracy, he's got good arm talent, and the thing I think this is going to be the one of the, you talk about misnomers, Keith. I think people are going to look at him and be like, okay, he's a statue. No, he can move. Like, he can get you some first downs with his legs.
Yep, he's athletic. I don't think you should look at him like that. Like, he has a much better profile than what people are leaning on right now, right? Like, the potential for what he can do. I think there should be a lot more excitement. DP, this last one, just talk about this real quick. The Las Vegas Raiders, because this is a name that's popping. Well, honestly, hasn't popped up. I thought this was a little bit aggressive because I watched Donovan Smith when he was at Texas Tech also. But Donovan Smith, quarterback of Houston, going number 8. How do you feel about that right now at this juncture in the draft process? But then also predicting it out, like, could this be a possibility?
This is aggressive, 100%, Keith. I like the physical tools and skill set of Donovan Smith. Watching him live in games at Houston last year, he was a playmaker. He was an impact player. But this is aggressive. This is a situation where he's the guy that when we finish summer scouting, you could walk and say, okay, he's the guy you need to put on your radar as the riser, right? Not saying he's like the Jaden Daniels, the like that type of riser, where it's like he came out of nowhere essentially, where people knew the name, but people didn't know how good he could be. And I think that's where it is for me when it comes on to Donovan Smith. That 8th overall, that top 10 pick right now, it's a good signaling, right? Kind of getting your foot out, getting your name out there, saying, hey, I was one of the first ones to mock him there. but it is a little bit of little bit aggressive because again, you have him over Shador Sanders, you have him over Jalen Milroe, you have him over some other highly Quinn Ewers, some really high caliber and highly qualified quarterbacks at bigger programs. So it's going to be interesting. I do like Donovan Smith, though. I can't wait to get into the deep dive of his film this summer.
Yeah, 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going. Let's keep this thing flowing, man. We're coming up. We have picks 11 through 20 of this 2025 NFL mock draft.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Guys, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Again, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 that you have at your disposal to bet on everything that you love, like spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. How do you get in on this deal? Well, let me give you the answer that you're asking. Visit fanduel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. Visit fanduel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. Why? Because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. With the 11th pick in Pro Football Network's 2025 mock draft, the New Orleans Saints select Deion Walker, defensive tackle out of Kentucky. With the 12th pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. With the 13th pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame. With the 14th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Emory Jones, offensive tackle out of LSU. With the 15th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Denzel Burke, cornerback out of Ohio State. With the 16th pick, the Cleveland Browns select Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. With the 17th pick, the Chicago Bears select Nick Scorton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. With the 18th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. With the 19th pick, the Los Angeles Rams select Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. And with the 20th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Nick Anderson, wide receiver from Oklahoma. Keith, where do you want to start here?
Pick 19.
Pick 19?
In Will Campbell fall. I think that'll be a surprise to a lot of people. We talked about him in the first segment, right? There's people talking about him being the #1 offensive tackle, him falling to pick 19, and actually his teammate going above him, Emory Jones. So this is the thing. Obviously, closely connected to LSU and stuff like that, and I've watched both of these guys. I've heard rumblings that Emory Jones is just as talented. Now, if he's just as talented, I wonder if these guys both still go in the top 10, right? Like we talked about.
Mhm.
And even we didn't even talk about it with Carolina, right? But if the Ika McQuanu situation doesn't work out, is that a situation where you potentially see a Will Campbell or whoever's offensive tackle one go first, right? And then you follow it up with the Tennessee Titans. And if they kick Jason Latham over to the left side, then do you see Emory Jones going at pick #2, which would be an interesting situation. But that was the first thing. Well, not the first thing, but one of the things that caught my eyes was like, hey, Will Campbell, falling. So it'll be interesting to just see how this offensive tackle class plays out. Right now, he's probably the most known name. I think it's safe to say, DP, of all the offensive tackles, right? He's kind of like the Mason Graham of the defensive tackles right now, where he's the guy that goes. Then the other selection, real quick, is the Cincinnati Bengals. Was that pick 17, I believe? 17, 16?
Wait, did I say Bengals? I might have said Bengals by accident. But 17 was actually Chicago Bears, and then
Puka.
Cleveland.
Sorry, yeah, that I'm Ohio. I was thinking Ohio. Ohio. That's another weapon, right? Like in the Cleveland Browns are quickly becoming. If Deshaun Watson doesn't work out, this is just an attractive situation for any quarterback, right? You talk about the run game, you're talking about the offensive line, you're talking about the ability for the defense to where you don't have to, you just can go out there sometimes and just not make mistakes, right? And they're gonna keep you in the game. And then this core that they have, with just the wide receivers and the tight ends, it's a really good situation. If they go get Emeka Ibuka, and I feel like it's been a couple years since the Cleveland Browns has had a first round pick. They go get Ibuka, that'll be a really good situation.
Yeah, 100%. And to real quick to your Will Campbell situation, I'm gonna tell you, like, I don't, and for me, I don't see Will Campbell. Like, I've watched him a little bit, just in, kind of getting prepared for 2025 class. Yeah, I think he's going much higher than 19. But also, they already have a left tackle who, I just did the deep dive into their roster, Alaric Jackson. So I was like, that's a little bit of a weird situation because Alaric Jackson is darn good. But Cleveland, Keith, could Cleveland, if they're at 16, with this roster, if you're at 16, there's only one reason you're at 16, and that's Deshaun Watson. So it's like, would they not be in position? Because did Jalen Milroe come off the board yet? Like, for Jalen Milroe, Shador Sanders, Quinn Ewers, all these guys.
Yeah, there's a gap, and I noticed that with this, the segment that we're doing in this segment of picks 11 through 20, there's a gap where I don't think there are any quarterbacks taken.
No. There are no quarterbacks. So if 16, if Cleveland's on the board, and if it played out like this, I know Emeka is a very interesting pick and a very good pick too. I would be shocked if they didn't go and get a quarterback, because at the end of the day, that contract from Deshaun Watson isn't it's not an indefinite contract. You're going to get out of it, and you need to be prepared to come out of it with a young, cost-efficient quarterback. So if Shador, Jalen Milroe are available, I'm 100% taking them over the receiver there. But I got to say this stretch right here, these two picks, 11 and 12, Keith, I love those two selections, especially Deion Walker. This at 6'5", 6'6", 350. This is a freak of nature, man. Like, just watch him get off the ball, the quick twitch, the speed, the strength, the everything. Like, he is a freak of nature and just a bull in a china shop. He can wreck everything for offense just himself. He's a different type of guy. So, like, I love that, adding that to having Cam, and if I remember, didn't they select an edge rusher this past draft class?
But they took Isaiah Foskey. Then they also have Brian Bresee.
That's it from last year.
That's a good combo, right? Because Brian Bresee, his strength was never really like run game strength, being consistently dominant, right? Like his strength is getting up the field, right? Whether that's shooting gaps, right, or even rushing the passer, right? And then you have that complementary piece with Deontay, and I think that could be a good situation moving forward.
100%. I love that breakdown. And then real quick, 12. You add Dallas Turner in the 2024 first round, right? With that second first round pick, you select Dallas Turner, so you get your edge, and then you come back the next year, a year later, get Brian Flores, if he's still there, as your defensive coordinator, a 6'3", 320-pound just monster in the middle, in Mason Graham out of Michigan. Dude plays all over the line, and it's crazy because he reminds me of, like, I think we got to get the measurements, the official measurements. We're months away from it. But I think he's the long arm version, or longer arm version. His arms look longer on tape to me. Longer arm version of Braden Fisk, where it's like, you don't have the questions about the arm length with him when I watch him. He punches strong. He's quick. Braden's probably going to test. I think Braden's a better athlete, like natural athlete. But that's the kind of, like, this dude is disruptive. He's just a ball of disruption. And with his explosiveness, his strength, everything, and then the alignment versatility he brings, being 320 pounds, so you can play him at 0, 1, 3, or 5. You can play him all along the defensive line, even some two eye as well. I think that puts Brian Flores in this defense in a very good position to then where your young corners don't have as much pressure on them dealing with Amara St. Brown, all the receivers in Green Bay, the trio of receivers in Chicago. You can get after these quarterbacks with that type of front.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, and that's rebuilding this Minnesota Vikings defense, right? That we've consistently talked about, and we've consistently talked about them needing an interior defensive lineman for like the past couple of years now. But DP, listen, man, we on to my favorite picks, right? Picks 21 through 32. Why? Because that's where the playoff teams are. We talked about there were no quarterbacks that came off the board in this section of picks 11 through 20. So let's see where those quarterbacks go in picks 21 through 32.
Guys, I know it can be a little frustrating trying to buy tickets, and the NBA Finals is quickly approaching. And I know how cool and excited it would be for myself to be able to go to a game at a reasonable price. Guys, Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. And with the Dallas Mavs and the Boston Celtics both trying to punch their ticket to the finals and close out their opponents, guys, it's no better time than to be an NBA fan than right now. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase today. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Let's close this thing out with the 21st pick. The New York Jets select Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. With the 22nd pick, the Miami Dolphins select Tyler Booker, guard, interior offensive lineman out of Alabama. With the 23rd pick, the Green Bay Packers select Ephesians Prysock, cornerback out of Washington. With the 24th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. With the 25th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Princey Umami-Melon, the edge rusher out of Ole Miss. The 26th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Ollie Gordon II, running back out of Oklahoma State. With the 27th pick, the Buffalo Bills select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle from Texas. With the 28th pick, the Houston Texans select Domani Jackson, cornerback out of Alabama. With the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions select Patrick Payton, edge rusher out of Florida State. With the 30th pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Jonah Savane, offensive tackle out of Arizona. With the 31st pick, the San Francisco 49ers select Harold Perkins, linebacker out of LSU. And with the 32nd pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. Keith, we got to go to these two quarterback spots, but let's stop before we get to the top of this thing. Let's stop with the Dallas Cowboys. How do you feel about Shedeur Sanders potentially replacing Dak Prescott?
Yeah, so I don't hate it, but I also see when we have the Dak Prescott conversation, I think a lot of it is misguided. And I just did the team needs, and I'm gonna tweet this out. Also, is that Dak Prescott is not their problem, right? The Dak Prescott is not the problem. Oh, the problem is that having the same exact team needs, and they never address them. Interior defensive line, linebacker, right, run game. This offensive line needed to be reboosted, right? In which they did that this year, but now the running back situation is kind of weird, right, as far as what they're doing. So Dak Prescott, in my opinion, is not their problem. Now, if you're going to move on to Shedeur Sanders, right, then that's when we're going to get into the contract conversation and all of this other stuff. But you can expect, I think the expectation is, okay, cool. If first of all, there's two things that if you're drafting Shedeur Sanders, then you had a quote unquote unsuccessful season once again, right? If you're the Dallas Cowboys. So now we're playing into this is the 2024 season that we're talking about being unsuccessful because you're drafting Shedeur Sanders. Then now you fast forward to 2025, you have a rookie quarterback, right? So now that's another year where the expectation cannot be winning a Super Bowl. You have a rookie quarterback. That's extremely difficult. And what this team has currently constructed, DP, I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is going to step in and immediately be an upgrade over. So I understand you're getting more cap room, right? And then people say, oh, well, you'll be able to build out the team. Well, that's understandable, but we're still talking about a rookie quarterback at the end of the day, DP. And we've seen the consensus generation prospects. We've seen the top 5 guys, right? And they still step into situations and still have to kind of grow and develop. So I think cool. Cowboys fans or whoever, you don't want Dak Prescott, that's fine. You move on from him, you get Shador Sanders. I like Shador Sanders as a quarterback. I think that's a good transitional piece, but expect this to be another 3 to 4 year process.
Yeah, I mean, they would have Jerry Jones would have to like really come out of his bag, pay guys, but not just pay guys, pay the right people in free agency to come in and help this team not put everything on the shoulders of Shador Sanders, right? Where like is it could he be a CJ could it be a CJ Stroud situation? Like, yeah, if you put the right team around them, but again, at the end of the day, it all comes back to Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones is going to say all in, no matter if it's Dak Prescott at quarterback, Shador Sanders at quarterback, or another rookie. He's going to keep saying we're all in, and you never win being all in the way that he's been all in. So it's just, I don't like you said, I don't hate the pick of Shador Sanders there. If it's the contract situation, you don't want to pay Dak Prescott $50-60 million. Hey, I totally understand that, right? I get it. You don't want to pay that type of money. But at the same time, you have to point the finger at yourself and say, this roster is never where we actually think it has been over the past 5 to 7 years.
Yep, 100%.
Number 21, the New York Jets getting Jackson Dart. So Jackson Dart came off the board before Shador Sanders. I don't even think Jalen Milroe made it into this first round. So this is a bold decision. And me and you've talked about Jackson Dart a lot on this show during the college football season, Keith. And we both got burned trying to pick him in games to show faith towards him.
Not DP. See, what happened was I got burned last year, right? And I learned my lesson. And I think there was one episode, DP, we did a Saturday, one of the live shows, and he was like, you know what, I'm Jackson Dart. And I said, DP, I got burned last year. I'm out on this situation. And then we came back to the show Monday, and we know the results of what happened. And listen, we can talk. Jackson Dart is a very talented guy, right? Like, he has a skill set. He does some really good things. It's just those crunch time moments, DP. And it's even showed itself with Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss I think with Lane Kiffin, they've lived in an area that they lived in a very long time, probably since maybe Eli Manning. I don't even remember exactly what their record was, right? But to where they're a consistent 9-10 win team, right? But you look at this roster, you look at situations sometime, right? And you be like, man, how do they get over the hump to be that 11-win team, right? And make it to the SEC championship. And it's those big time moments to where you look at it and you say, man, when they put it on Jackson Dart's shoulders, does he show up, right? And it's just those games haven't been good. We'll see how he develops this year. I know for me, coming off of last year, I wouldn't put him this high. And then I definitely don't think almost rebuild after they emptied the tank for Aaron Rodgers, right? And got rid of draft picks, and there's still some holes on the team. I definitely don't think I would send him to the New York Jets.
Yeah, also, like, putting him in New York, a team that's hungry for wins, a team that's just hungry to be successful. That's just a really, for me, this is a situation where the mental, the psyche, the person, who they are comes into play, because going into that New York media market, that is a buzzsaw. They will put you on front page and love you, and then they'll put you on the front page and hate you in the same week.
Yeah, and you have to fight against, and this is the crazy thing with I think with Jets fans, right, is that you have to fight against the almost 50 years of them feeling like what could go wrong will go wrong, right? So when you have to fight against the entire fan base that you're playing for to make them feel like everything is okay. So it's even an extra lift. Like, and it's not the same thing in the same media market, right? It's not the same thing with New York Giants fans, right? It's a little bit different, but it's like there's always this underlying, what's the proper word? Like trepidation or anticipation for something to go wrong. And then you have to fight against that as a quarterback. So it's definitely a difficult spot to play in, especially if you're a rookie.
I love the talent that Jackson Dart brings, the arm talent, the mobility. He's a good athlete. This is a guy he played. Remember how they kept saying Will Levis plays like Josh Allen, which that was never true, right? I feel like Jackson Dart has that Josh Allen as a runner, where you see Josh he'd be willing to run through guys and run over guys and not fully protect his body and stuff. Jackson Dart's got a lot of runs like that where you're like, Jackson, get out of bounds. Like, don't lower your right shoulder, which is your throwing shoulder, into a 200-pound safety. Yes, it looks good. It gets you hype. But, brother, if we see you get up holding that arm slumped down because now you got numbness in it, we don't need that, Jackson. So, overall, I like the talent. I just think that this is a tough situation to put him in because the team is good. They'll have weapons, run game, offensive line, defense. You would probably be expected to come in, especially if Aaron Rodgers is not there, and help them win games. And this is a team that watched Zach Wilson. Like, if anybody destroyed or created pessimism for a rookie quarterback for the Jets, it was Zach Wilson. So I don't know if this is the right type of situation for Jackson Dart.
I agree 100% with DP. That wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. A mock draft Monday. That was fun getting back into that, DP. These prospects, we'll get to know them. We'll be able to bring these really good conversations. And listen, make sure y'all continue to tap in with the number one source for the best NFL draft content, and that is the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're commenting. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host on the ones and twos, doing all the navigating and scrolling and mock drafting, Mr. Damian Parson himself. And you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go and follow and subscribe for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shot for being our every day. On tomorrow's show, we're taking a road trip to OTAs. We're looking at some of these rookies. Caleb Williams last week struggled against that vaunted Bears defense. We can get to all that tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.